This is where it starts for these two teams. This is the game that they need to win for that path to the legendary status of your name on the Intel Extreme Masters trophy. And the players themselves will have the weight of this stadium on them right now. And let's speak of the players, because these are the guys that can create those legendary plays. H2k, let's start with these guys. I mean, can you hear this crowd in the background? Jankos is on stage here, and you know that they are cheering for him. It's his home crowd. What absolutely insane atmosphere in here. I mean, we are almost set back a little bit, and it's still feeling it right in this, you know, setback analyst desk. But let's talk about the players. And we have to talk about Jankos. We have to talk about Fabivan on H2k.
I think Jankos has to come first. It's the Polish prince, the first blood king, and damn, the crowd is happy to see him here.
And you know he's a hyphy player, and that brings up the morale of a team that is known on relying on confidence. So I think H2k will come out swinging, just really ecstatic to play here. And man, the fan crowd cheers will just boost them to play even better.
Yeah, crowd in their favor. Hong Kong Esports already not in the greatest matchup. H2k has to feel good coming into this. Everyone's behind them in this series.
Let's look at their opposition, because I feel like a lot of the time, you know, they've had an easy path here. You can't really spell it any other way. You guys have talked about M19 being a fairly low-key opposition for HKE to beat to get to this position, but they have had performances, and Gear is a great mid laner who's shown some promise, and we have to talk about that Gear Fabivan matchup, because Fabivan is kind of showing glimpses of that 2015 Fabivan that we saw break onto the scene.
It's interesting for me because I think Gear is very good. I think he can move up in the LMS. We'll see how he does. But even then, I think it's going to be dead even in the mid lane at best for him. And we're going to have to see, are they going to prioritize this mid lane matchup? Are they going to give him champions where he can get an edge? Or are they just going to have to find that edge elsewhere? Because drafting just for Gear feels like a pretty straightforward strategy.
He might be dead even in lane, but I really think that Fabivan has been having an outstanding tournament so far. He has been just crushing it, being by far the most standout player on his team so far. And you can say and credit a lot of the kind of lackluster performances from H2k to the compositions that just don't really make a whole lot of sense. We have been criticizing the draft, not so much for the champions, but more in the lack of cohesion for what H2k is bringing to the table. So if they go with the style that just allows Fabivan to shine, we have seen the Elise Zed combination with Jankos and Fabivan. I think they can easily steamroll this matchup.
And speaking from H2k's perspective as well, another player that I wanted to highlight specifically is Nuclear. He seems to be getting more and more impressive, especially as the EULCS has been progressing. Got it eventually. And I think a lot of people have been, especially on social media, saying, actually, I really think that Nuclear is kind of coming into his own right now.
He's a very solid player. I think that he's steadily improved, and as team communication gets better, he seems to be playing fights better and better. And the laning phase, these guys, we kind of called them passive, right? They were always just willing to concede lane, but now that we've seen them a few more weeks, they're willing to get more aggressive if they find an advantage. They're willing to push that advantage, and that's huge against HKE's bottom lane, who, if you kind of just let them run free into the mid game, I don't think that's the right strategy.
Exactly. When they get into the mid game, we have seen this team be proactive, and that is just so important for a team that is coming in as the underdog. You need to be prepared to punish the mistakes that an opponent makes, and H2k has made a lot of mistakes in the group stage.
So, if H2k want to get off to a flying start here, because this is the team that we're expecting to win, I assume, you know, that's the global consensus. If they want to get off to a start that's going to secure them a good, commanding victory, what is it that they need to change up from what we saw in the group stages?
No more Rengar.
No more Rengar. The Elise for me was always a questionable pick as well, because you have to snowball the early game so hard for it to be a relevant pick. You have to play so perfectly for it to work out well. But that said, Jankos has improved on it. He's shown better performances. And if they want to put Fabivan on a champion that can snowball, I think it lines up perfectly with an early game strategy. The question is, once they make it out of the early game, once they have that lead, can they keep it?
I don't know, man. I don't know. It's been so rocky for watching H2k so far. I mean, I do think that because they're such a kind of volatile team in their emotions and the confidence, that they can definitely just bounce back tremendously. We have seen incredible performances out of this team, but on the other side, we have seen just such a downgrade in terms of their play. But Hong Kong, Gemini, the jungler, has that lead scene, even though we know Jankos can play, the playmaking ability, the kind of proactivity that these guys can make can easily surprise teams. And I think that if they can bring that to the table from what we've seen, even in their matchup against NMT, sure, they were not the strongest competition, but you do have to be able to beat weaker competition quite handily, and they did so. And that is a show of how good a team can be. And
there we have it. Jankos on your screen, and you can see the Polish crowd. Huge fan of this guy. I mean, he's right here in his home territory.
However, I do have to play devil's advocate. He has had a third of the team's deaths in the group stage, but that's not entirely his fault. Again, it is a team game, and when you're playing jungler, jungler is usually the role that kind of sacrifices himself for the benefit of the team. So if he dies, most of the time it is for a good cause.
Now, I want to talk about the sort of stylistic sort of tendencies that we see from these two. Like, Jankos is a big early game presence jungler. He likes to have an impact in lanes. He's the first blood king for a reason. We heard from the LMS that HK have got a very solid early game in terms of their own statistics. So is this something that we're going to see Jankos step up back to that EULCS Jankos that we know, that first blood, early aggressive jungler?
I think it depends on the pick they set him up with. Elise is purely set up to succeed in the early game, already an incredibly strong champion, very proactive in the ganks that it can make happen. However, if they don't set him up with that pick, I'm curious how Gemini will do. Will Gemini path better? Will Gemini look for duels in the jungle? Because I don't think Gemini is a slouch. I think Jankos might be a smarter jungler, but I think in terms of mechanical play, you can't count Gemini out.
Yeah, and the dangers of being like the first blood king, like why does that happen? You invest a lot of time into waiting for plays, right? Camping brushes, looking for weaknesses in the opponent's laning phase patterns and abusing that. And so by that same notion, if you do that, you risk falling behind. And we have seen it before. For example, a mobility boot rush Elise. If you don't get the ball rolling, you risk falling behind tremendously come mid and late game. So they have to be really precise on this. So he can honestly choose an approach that's not so focused in the early game and still succeed.
And let's look at, I mean, a lot of people at home will have maybe watched some of the group stages and said, why is Gragas appearing top? Like, this is something that's come out quite recently. I know you guys are like, oh, God, but this is something that Maple Snow seems to be defaulting back to on HKE. And is this going to throw any kind of spanner in the works for Odoamne?
I think it's a solid matchup into most tanks. I think Odoamne isn't really going to struggle into it. I think the laning phase, at best, will go even for Maple Snow, but the playmaking potential of Gragas is pretty massive. As long as he's not matched up against a Shen, I think he has a lot more team fight presence and just generally can be a very strong pick.
He can, but he can also be just so flat in the water. And honestly, H2k has had games where they didn't even drop a ban, so you might as well just use that spare one on that one.
We are heading into Champion Select for our first pick and ban phase at the Spodek Arena here at the Intel Extreme Masters World Championships. HKE versus H2k, and Shen and LeBlanc are gone already.
Shen, I think, very good ban coming out. Last time they played, HKE could not respond to the bot lane Shen dives, so much so that HKE then took it to the top lane, rinsed and repeated, and found more kills and more towers. So simply taking it off the board is a good adaptation. I would have liked to see them adapt their play in game. However, this is the much safer approach to the draft overall.
I'm really glad the Syndra or the LeBlanc and Jace are being taken out.
Sure.
We have seen that the champion pool really makes players that are perceived as to be weaker just completely demolish matchups. So the respect bans coming out are some of the top tier picks in the 7.3 patch.
We saw LeBlanc once this championship, and she decimated. I don't think we're going to see LeBlanc again. It is going to be Rumble finally taken off the board, and Varus, a very, very strong AD carry that seems to be prioritized, especially by Asian teams on first pick if left open, is banned away finally. Where are you going for first pick for HKE here in terms of power picks or what you think will suit there?
It's interesting because the AD carry pool without Varus is very different, because if you pick Jhin here as Hong Kong Esports, you're set up to get pushed in by something like an Ashe or a Sivir. You're going to lose early lane priority, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that they should be ready to concede bottom lane in the early game.
Yeah.
However, even with the Jhin locked in, they can pivot, look to grab a Karma, and still come out on top in the early lane.
Now H2k have to respond. What do you think they should prioritize here? Is it prioritizing Jankos' jungler so he doesn't get anything taken away? Wow, the lock-in for Maokai straight away.
Loving the Maokai pick, just making sure they already know what the composition is. It's just saying, we are going to 5v5 you to death.
Does this not this telegraphs, right? This telegraphs to HKE? I mean, can HKE do anything about it?
It doesn't matter too much that it's telegraphed because you already picked the two key parts of the composition.
Okay, yeah.
There's so many junglers left. You have Kha'Zix, Graves left it for your jungle pool. All the mid laners, all the supports are available. So you got the core already. It's a matter of just catering it now.
And I really like what H2k have done to respond here, because with Shen and Rumble taken off the board, Maokai has such an easy time now in lane. There are a few other matchups, but for the most part, he's going to go even, short of seeing something really crazy. Yeah, well, Gragas.
He's going to go against Gragas. If you're H2k then, What do you pick on this next rotation to ensure that you get a core to your composition that can't be banned away on the next phase?
I mean, it depends on what you want to pinch. And for H2k, I think that they should be comfortable looking to pinch the mid lane pool if they want to give Febiven a comfortable matchup. But at the end of the day, it's really going to depend here. With Elise locked in now, I think H2k pretty much have to lock a jungler. The jungle pool up front top tier doesn't feel wide enough to me that they can afford to pick a Zed here as much as Febiven likes to taunt us.
Yeah, you lock in your support or your jungler right now, and it's very telling of what this game is going to look like already with the first 3 picks. Elise is already such an early game jungler, and she has to deal with a Sivir come team fighting phase, which is going to be a nightmare, dealing with that spell shield, dealing with the Maokai, and on top of that, the Lee Sin. So H2k,
this is good.
Here we go.
Completely outscale Hong Kong Esports right now. So if the game is not over by 30 minutes from Hong Kong, then I think H2k has this in the bag.
I'm almost 50-50 whether this is a Lee Sin crowd pleaser pick.
No.
I see he's a crowd pleaser.
Lee Sin, obviously very hyped. But the reason I love Lee Sin as a character is unlike Elise.
And there we go.
Oh, taken off the board. Gragas. H2k can use that, man. But Lee Sin is so effective pretty much at every stage of the game. Early game, he can be very successful in finding early aggressive plays, can out-jungle the majority of the pool. Elise kind of notwithstanding. However, late game, the kick is always a solid option. It's always relevant, it's always useful, whereas late game Elise is essentially a stun bot, and Cocoon is just so much worse than Lee Sin ult.
So, final 2 bans. Zed has actually been taken off the table here against Febiven, if he even wanted to consider that. What do you think's going to round this out for H2k?
I mean, I think the Zed ban's smart. You have 3 squishy members
Really?
already on your team.
I think it's a little bit, doesn't really fit the way that the composition works already, because you already have a physical AD carry, the physical jungler, and that would put you in a very heavy AD lineup so far. I would have more likely expected a AP carry here with the Sivir, but the Zed would make sense anyways. It's just, I feel like you can just go with the full-on outscale.
I think it's the caution coming in. They're nervous because they did concede early game last time to take the Zed off the board to stop the snowball coming in. Overall, I think the AP is stronger for the team composition, but when you're HKE, once again, if you can just stop the bleeding in the early game, you really just want to get to an even mid game, or maybe look to be more proactive early on. However, Malzahar taken off the board as well. Interesting adjustment here, I guess, just trying not to let their bottom lane get shut down by the guaranteed CC coming in from Malzahar.
So, H2k, do you think they take the support here, leaving Febiven with the mid lane pick for final?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to have that pick, and the Zyra will just mean that Hong Kong Esports will have no chance of engaging onto this lineup. Just such a tremendous amount of AoE crowd control and zone between Zyra, Maokai, and Lee that HKE will have to really cater their team plan to something completely different, maybe even go as far as a split pushing comp here with a Fiora, but that is going to be darn hard to execute.
I mean, they've got decent poke pieces coming in here. They've got decent catch potential. Really, at this point, they're set up to make picks because they're not going to be able to engage and they're not going to be able to win team fights against this H2k lineup, because once you get a few items on Sivir, it's nigh impossible to come out on top. And Zyra, of course, as you said, the zone control coming in from that pick means that Elise is never going to be comfortable to move into the backline, never really going to be able to threaten anybody.
Corki gets locked in here, which leaves the Nautilus being hovered here for the top lane. Maple Snow, he will lock that in. Now they have the engage potential if they want it, but again, Zyra can throw a Thorn into the works.
It's interesting, too. I love Nautilus in most matchups, but particularly not against Sivir so much, just because depth charge is an incredibly difficult ability to deal with, but when you have a spell shield, it mitigates most of that. But I like Nautilus because it will give them early top pressure against the Maokai. Riptide is just so good for pushing those lanes, which will either allow Elise to make more plays on the bottom side or set them up to try to snowball the Elise on top side.
Yeah, and at least they have a chance of really snowballing this matchup. There's plenty of CC all around, and the composition is just a little bit worse come mid and late.
So Orianna locked in finally. Bread and butter with Maokai often in some of these cases. And that is the compositions, gentlemen. What are we expecting in terms of win conditions for either? You've touched on them, but let's round it out.
It's just going to be Clash 5-on-5, full-on bloodbath here.
I think I want to see Snowball come in from HKE early because the scaling is very, very clearly in the favor of the H2k comp. So if they stay even into the late game, it's going to look so good.
Predictions, gentlemen, we haven't got very long. Crumbs?
I think H2k can take this game 1 pretty convincingly.
I'm going to agree with Crumbs on this one. It's going to look pretty good for H2k.
Double H2k. It looks like the community are in your camp too. 81% in favor of H2k going into this first game of the best of 3 series. What a game it is going to be. H2k on the road to a semi-final. Let's hand it over to our casters to get ready for this match. It's Munchables and Froskurin.
Thank you very much, guys. We are here. We're ready to get into this first decider match here in the Spodek. How are you doing, Froskurin?
Always incredibly to be in a live arena, and we heard it on the desk. We've talked about it pre-show. These teams are stylistically very similar. Explosive top side of the map, very volatile and aggressive junglers. I'm looking at Jankos, I'm looking at Gemini for this game.
Yeah, we've got to be looking at Jankos. The analysts are on H2K's side. The fans at home are on H2K's side. I've got to hear you, Katowice. Are you with Jankos here, the only Polish player at IEM this year? I think they might be with him. We're ready to get into game. We're ready to get into this decider match, and we are on to Summoner's Rift for Hong Kong Esports up against H2k-Gaming.
Now, what's interesting for me is if we look again, Gemini and Jankos, this is the featured matchup. Junglers have so much control over the early game. Both these guys actually took their champions away from each other. Jankos went back to the comfort Elise pick at the start of IEM. Gemini, one of the only guys to play Elise at the tournament. This time around, they denied each other, took the comfort picks. But if you look at push priority, Maple Snow got the Nautilus. He has push priority top side.
You hear the crowd moan at the pause.
Whereas,
We just want to get started.
I know, right? We just want to jump into it. Whereas Sivir and Zyra, H2k got the priority push on the bottom side. So Jankos should have the go-ahead, the green light to invade bottom side and pressure that point, whereas Gemini will be looking to exploit the top side of the map if possible.
Yeah, and I mean, we mentioned already Jankos on Lee Sin. Yes, he's taken it away from Gemini because that's his comfort pick. But it's not like Jankos is new to Lee Sin. It's not like that's a champion that he's never played. This is a champion he is very comfortable on. And this is a champion that helped him build up his name of the First Blood King.
This is very true. Likewise, we really haven't seen his Elise before he brought it out at this tournament until all the way back at Worlds, and still kind of fits in that wheelhouse there. It's always nice to see him on an aggressive jungler, and it's very important for the composition again. H2K's comp, Maokai, Lee Sin, Orianna, Sivir, and Zyra. And my only issue with this composition is it's incredibly reliant on Lee Sin as the early bridge power here. Orianna is a 3-item breakpoint champion. Sivir, I mean, Draco said it on the desk. Yeah, when you get the items into her, she can still do ridiculous damage late game, but her problem on 7.3 is that she doesn't itemize into that lethality build path. So she doesn't get a power spike at every single buy, and you need to invest a lot more time before your team is actually really ready to go.
Yeah, and in this matchup specifically, she's against a Jhin, who does get those power spikes. He loves to build that lethality. And we'll see how that's going to affect the game. But I've got to say, if you're a Hong Kong esports fan at home right now, if you're one of the 21% that voted for Hong Kong esports, there is a lot on the line for H2K. But Hong Kong, they're here to prove themselves. This is an opportunity to make a splash on the international stage.
They've had a really rough go of it, I think is fair to say, in the LMS. I mean, AHQ, Flash Wolves, J-Team, all back-to-back. It puts them in 6th place, but when you talk to the team, they're confident. They say, we feel like we're actually the 4th best team in the LMS, and a lot of that is due to the star potential and the X factor in that mid lane here. They say that he is going to be the next Maple. He's got solo kills on Westdoor. He's now looking across from a return to form Febiven.
Yes.
So can he step out of Toys' shadow and kind of assume the throne of the next big mid laner for the LMS?
That is going to be the question, and what better player to try and prove yourself against than Febiven? The guy that solo kill Faker, that's how he made his name. And he's going to be going toe-to-toe with Gear. Orianna versus Corki, though, not going to be the most aggressive matchup.
Oh, we'll see. Orianna can always step forward, play aggressively. That's what I like to see. I mean, Faker really was kind of the guy who revolutionized that play style. I expect that Febiven won't ever step back. He's going to step forward. He's pulled out the Zed already this tournament, so feeling confident. But quickly touching on jungle starts, because it looks like we might get an invade. No, Maple Snow and Gemini are just going to back off and leash the blue. But it's going to be a Raptor start. So you can already see the saplings are set up in the little Raptor camp for Jankos there, and that's going to give him a tempo and an EXP advantage. So he's going to be clearing faster through this jungle, and it's now what does he do with that window over Gemini?
Yeah, and how can he exploit that? How can he turn that into a lead? We know Jankos as the First Blood King, and getting that tempo start, getting that advantage on his opponent will set him up for success. But Gemini, this is a player with a bit of prowess about himself. This is a player that we're expecting big things out of. So,
I'm curious to see what he will do to try and counteract that, and where we see these junglers really focused. And I mean, looking at the compositions, where do you expect these junglers to really focus their attention?
Again, Nautilus typically gets the push priority into Maokai. He can use his Riptide, walk into the creep wave. That said, because Odo actually beat him to the lane, because all he had to do was throw down the saplings, he didn't actually have to leash. He got the initial push, so we'll see if he can actually abuse that. Is the earlier level 2. He knows that jungle started top side of the map, so he's not in danger to be overextended like this. But typically, because Lee Sin did get that Raptor buff, you can already see he went Raptor's red is now on his blue buff, which should mean that we may actually see a Scuttle contest here.
Yeah, Gemini heading over towards the
No,
crab
he just
as
went
well.
to Gromp.
Getting some vision, yeah. Jankos can go for his Gromp. They're nearby each other, though. We could see some action maybe in the bottom lane, but HKE are pushed up pretty heavily in this bottom lane. Which, you know, against the Sivir is not something you expect to see all the time, but that's one of the things that Karma brings.
Yes, the ultimate pushing champion right now. Again, 7.3 Zyra, she's been down-tuned a little bit where her plants just won't automatically target champions. She still has a lot of her push priority if she can get her seed saplings down early on in the lane.
So now across the board, fairly slow start. Obviously, everyone kind of getting used to being on stage, and that's a big thing here because Hong Kong Esports are not the most experienced team. We've been mentioning how these guys want to build a reputation. Gear actually getting taken very low. Febiven going for this one. Valkyrie's out though. Gear walks away alive.
Yep, and everyone retains their summoner spells. Meanwhile, Jankos, he's got the pressure advantage mid. Now looking at Gemini.
He's going in. He's looking for that first blood. It might be a solo one. Getting the red buff taken away. Stun doesn't land. We've got a Maple Snow coming down to try and help his jungler, but Jankos isn't done yet. Sonic Wave doesn't land. Now it's Jankos on the back foot. He's down to 200, and he might be the first one to drop. Maple Snow can't finish it, doesn't flash after. We've got a bit of action, but no kills.
Unfortunately, Jankos walks out, loses his summoner spells, but he does retain his life. Kind of clumsy over the blast plant, maybe looking for the outplay. Maybe he tried to go over the wall there. In the end, does grab the Scuttle Crab and walks away.
So, just teasing you all there a little bit, not wanting to go whole hog, but that is going to be Jankos and Gemini without a flash. So, do you think that'll affect how aggressive these guys are, or do you think that's just not going to make enough of a difference?
I mean, they both got their gap closers, so necessarily I wouldn't say so. The big thing is how Flash really works with Lee Sin level 6, because obviously he can start the animation, flash behind and insect you in. That said, still level 4, so hopefully that cooldown will be available when he decides to make a play like that. But ultimately, he's got enough CC that he shouldn't have to.
Yeah, and again, Febiven trading so aggressively, you said you can be very aggressive on this Orianna, and even with that huge minion wave, still looking to get those Thunderlords procs, still looking to lay down the pressure, but it's Gear that shoved the wave in. That means he can kind of stroll around the map a little bit.
But just being really defensive with what he's doing with his pressure point. So yeah, he's got Febiven locked in, but it's to place a control ward. It's to proc the blue plant. You know, he's just clearing out, sweeping down river, nothing too aggressive yet. Shouldn't expect that until that 8-minute mark when he gets his package, and maybe they look for a side lane play.
Yeah, I want to see how that is used, because different teams definitely have different styles when they get that Corki package. Some of them want to be proactive, use that aggressively, but you see other teams kind of holding it just to put pressure down.
G2, particularly in this tournament, have done a great job with how they use their back timers and how they utilize Corki power spike on package as well. Everyone always talks about, you know, the big mid-game Corki spike, you know, it's like buzzwords, Trinity Force, mid-game power spike, woo! But it's really about the earlier power spike with the package and how you're able to back efficiently on that and use it around objectives like Dragon in particular, because Dragon every 6 minutes, package every 8 minutes, you've got a lot of poke, you can actually stall out and try to time that up quite well.
Yeah, and I mean, we've already been talking about power spikes as well with the lethality champions. Power spikes are a huge factor. And it'll be interesting to see as this game progresses how these teams kind of abuse those item spikes. And when we see teams be aggressive, because H2k, they're a team that are renowned for being aggressive. They're a team that's renowned for being proactive and making things happen.
Which is funny, because again, if you look at this composition with the Maokai, with the Orianna and the Sivir, yeah, they have the Lee Sin, but ultimately it's not a comp that peaks early. You're really looking at Jankos as the only guy to bridge or carry over early game pressure into mid game for Orianna to then take the torch away from him. He can sync up really well with Odo, Obviously, Maokai, Twisted Advance sets up Sonic Waves really well,
Yep.
but Odo's been constantly pushed forward in the top lane so far, so there's no ganking opportunity yet for Jankos, but it could just be a gentleman's agreement. Let's farm to level 6. Obviously, Elise's level 6 doesn't mean nearly as much as the fact that Lee Sin gets Dragon Rage, because she's a dual split champion, so that's going to be a much bigger power spike for Jankos that he could abuse if he wants to go toe-to-toe or 2v2 topside.
Yeah, and that's if he even waits until level 6, because we've already seen he's more than willing to go for an engage, and he nearly got the one-on-one against Gemini. The top laners came down to ruin that one a little bit, but you saw a tweet there come up on the screen as well. Deficio, big fan of the H2k draft so far, and kind of criticizing, yeah, unsurprisingly.
Deficio, big fan of H2k in this matchup? I'm shocked.
But the big thing there was he was criticizing the threats on the side of Hong Kong Esports. He was criticizing their draft in terms of the damage they can output.
They do have the Corki, they have the Jhin. My issue with Jhins is if you're always going to take a gamble on like who's going to do most damage, especially late game, you usually give it to the Jhin just because he gets, you know, the crit, the big fourth shot there. But it seems like a lot of Jhins this tournament in particular have kind of resigned themselves to just being that utility fan. You know, they just sit back in the team fight, they throw the 4 ultimate shots, and then maybe like a cheeky W, and that's about it. They seem really hesitant to not necessarily get on the front lines, but to step forward and really output.
To commit to the fight.
Exactly. I think Nuclear is really one of the few Jhin players this tournament actually that has put himself kind of in the line of fire to really maximize Jin's damage output rather than just relying on the ult and being that utility bot. It seems like he wants to step forward and say, I can actually be a hyper carry on this champion still.
And that's one of the, historically, that's always been one of the big differences in these caster AD carry players is who is just going to hold back and only use those abilities and who is able to thread those auto attacks in and really optimize the damage output available. You can see Forbidden sat there looking comfortable, in all honesty, not really looking nervous at all.
Yeah, and if you want to talk about one of the players that has kind of not peaked necessarily in performance for the tournament, but has stepped up, you do have to look towards H2k's mid laner Febiven there. Even in their losses, he has looked solid on the Syndra performance, on the Zed performance. He doesn't seem reliant on a champion to go back to comfort pick. Actually denied Gear the comfort pick of the Orianna here. Yeah. Naturally, Corki was technically picked first in the draft phase, but still showing that he's a threat on that champion as well.
And also kind of throwing down the gauntlet, right? Because that's what we've seen coming out there for Gear is the Orianna. That's what we've seen him very comfortable on and very effective on. And Forbidden is kind of just saying, you think you're a good Orianna? Let me show you what a good Orianna looks like.
It also fits very well in this composition. This is pretty stock standard League of Legends. You know, it's just a Sivir comp.
Well, we are back onto the map. Summoner's Rift is underway once more. We're 5 minutes into this game. Apologies about the couple of delays there. Hopefully, all issues have been resolved now. But back to shoving up these lanes. And once again, it's all about these two junglers. It's all about how Gemini and Jankos can affect the map.
And checking in on early backs, Jankos actually does have a back advantage with the longsword as well as 2 control wards. So they technically have the ability to place 3 on the map. We'll see if perhaps that is just for defensive vision or if they really want to move in and take control over a side of the map.
Looks like the answer is move in and try and take control as Jankos aggressively pushes forward, places his control ward down.
He's going to walk into Gemini. Gemini does know he's here because he cleared the ward.
Going to be trying to take away a couple of these Razor Chickens. Gemini's there though, and will drop his own control ward. Jankos, he's not done yet though. He's not afraid of Gemini.
And good posturing from Febiven. You can see him bowling out Gear.
He's level 6. Shockwave gets Valkyried away from Jankos now. Does manage to get the big chicken, and it's going to be Gemini getting very low. Jankos level 5 doesn't have Sonic Wave left. Gemini once again walks away.
But taking over this jungle and now looking to dive.
His mind's telling him no.
No shockwave.
He's not going to follow through with it. The Lee Syndrome doesn't affect pro players.
But that's nice. They pump the brakes. You know, they don't overextend their hand because they don't have the resources to do so. So take control of the jungle, place a lot of control wards. We'll get so much information on Gemini. It's now a matter of what do H2k do with that info now.
So Gemini able to go back to his jungle and start to get a couple more jungle creeps under his belt. And Jankos going to do the same. So again, we see these junglers. They have a little bit of a spurt of aggression. They try and find a fight. then they have to back away again.
There is technically a window where H2k can move down to the Mountain Dragon. They do see that blue buff is being taken here. Gemini and Gear are both low health. It's going to force the Elise to back, as well as the bot lane being back, but Jankos actually prioritizing his clear, so they're not going to go ahead and pull the trigger on the Mountain Dragon.
Yeah, and I think it was one of those where they didn't have vision already set up and they were maybe a little bit hesitant to go for that.
It's also the fact that Febiven's probably sitting on a big power spike here, still only has the double Dorns as well as the boots, so wanting to get his back in. There's the lost chapters there, as well as more control wards. So knowing that they're strong, that they can go for it later, they don't need to force their hand.
So Nesty going to be going through his own jungle here, just making sure that H2k don't have too much knowledge of the game right now. Jankos will be spotted out by a ward here, which means it's in the hands of Gemini now. He knows where his opposing jungler is. What's he going to do with that information?
Meanwhile, Nesty also slipping underneath, getting his back timers and placing down some deep vision. This would be a dangerous dive, Jankos.
Certainly would, but we've seen that Jankos isn't necessarily afraid of danger. He's not going to pull the trigger on this one just yet, though.
They're still going to go for it. Odo is just picking up the honey fruit to refresh himself, and Jankos isn't going anywhere.
He's still sticking around, is going to channel the base. Look how much vision from H2k is in this bottom side of the map as well. Maple Snow still sticking around. I think Jankos has finished the base, though.
But I do want to say that good job from Maple Snow to actually hide himself. So the reason why Jankos finally just kind of waved the white flag and decided that he was done waiting around is that Nautilus hid himself in that top rush there. So they thought that the Nautilus had just disappeared.
So Maple Snow, once again, showing that he is very competent top laner and certainly holding his own. The Gragas top got taken away from him, though. There was a lot of top bans coming out from H2k. Maple Snow on this Nautilus, obviously proving that his game knowledge is strong, but he's not necessarily on that comfort pick that we know him for.
It's actually the first different champion that he's played for the entire tournament. He's had 3 games of Gragas, and finally banned away from him, forces him on the Nautilus, and he does look uncomfortable against Odo in the matchup. Odo winning on pushing him in, as well as trading.
Look at the amount of wards from both sides around this dragon. It's definitely going to be a big focus with the Mountain Drake early on in the game. It's always going to end up being a big focus. But it's difficult to just force that objective without first finding an advantage elsewhere.
Gear is being so
Gear
patient.
gets kicked in. Forbidden's looking for this one. Sonic Wave goes through. There's a shockwave, but Gear gets the first blood. Forbidden's under the tower. Walks away with the kill. But what a play from Gear.
Best case scenario for Gear, though, to be able to trade. Unfortunately, the wave will still crash on his tower, so he's still denied the experience and the minions there, but Jankos looking to Febiven saying, I'm going to set you up. Very aggressive play to come over the Raptor wall and kick him forward.
Yeah, I think maybe we needed to see an earlier shockwave from Forbidden there. Needed to burst Gear down before he got underneath his own tower, but it's just going to be a 1-for-1. First blood goes the way of Hong Kong Esports, but gold's still an advantage of H2k.
Do want to highlight Che right here on your screen, though. He sees where Elise is. Gemini moved over to cover the wave that Orianna was shoving in, gives him the go-ahead that he can move in, and again, continuously place this deep vision. H2k have had this red side jungle entirely lit up the entire portion of the game.
Yeah, just trying to get as much control of that dragon area once again, making sure that there's no way HKE can go there without being spotted out, even if they get red trinkets, even if they get control wards. There is so much vision, they just can't control it all.
They're setting up a trap here. Gear doesn't have his summoner spells.
He's going to walk over, does get rooted up. There's the Stranglethorns as well, but he Valkyries himself away, and this is why Corki is such a valuable pick, because it is such a safe pick.
Unfortunately, though, Febiven just not quite back into lane there, so unable to follow up on the Zyra ultimate that was used, but should take advantage of that health disparity now, although Corki will be potting up.
Jankos has been caught out all alone, and look at the damage coming out! It's a kill that goes the way of Maple Snow.
And again, Maple Snow ducking down, catching out Jankos. This is not the first time that this has happened. The few times that H2k have fallen down in this tournament, it's particularly Febiven and Jankos just kind of face-checking into unsafe scenarios. Not everyone accounted for or communicated across the map.
And now you have to bring up the question. Jankos, he's here in Poland, and he's one of these players that, you know, he plays with his heart very much invested, and we know that when he's had a bad start, sometimes that can affect his performance. He is going to need this crowd to be behind him. I've got to ask you again, Katowice, are you with Jankos in this game?
They're going to have to be with Oda in a second, though.
Gemini hanging around that top side. Gemini definitely, he's had his foot on the accelerator pedal this game. He keeps on trying to put this pressure down, keeps on trying to make things happen for his team.
Good rotation from Che, though, again. So they catch out where Gemini is on the map. They make a great shove with Odo, pull him just in case he's needed, and H2k get a very clean, very early first brick on a super priority tower there.
And even though they are a kill down, they are now 1,000 gold up in this game. Significant lead here for H2k. We've got to see them turn it into more. Here's a quick replay. This is the gank that happened earlier.
So close to being the first blood king, but it's just by the skin of his teeth, Gear, trading it back and making sure that he gets it first. But like you said, that shockwave, maybe just a second too late, the difference there.
And the thing is as well, if that first dissonance had landed, Gear would have been dead before he could have traded the kill back. But certainly well played by Gear in that scenario to make sure to pull Jankos heavily underneath that tower and capitalize. Morellonomicon now finished for Forbidden. We've mentioned these power spikes. It's Triforce for Gear as well. We could start to see some action.
Again, it's just those different peaks. Orianna really reliant on kind of 3 items before she really comes that big monster in team fights. That said, she's still going to have great zone control, especially as these team fights start moving into the river. Pixel Brush in particular, watch when H2k set up for dragons, where Febiven will posture that ball if he'll hide it in that Pixel Brush and threaten in zone with Shockwave.
Yeah, or possibly even hide the ball inside of the walls around that dragon pit. It's certainly something that happens a lot. Shockwave onto Gear. For Bivin. He's not looking for the kill, just looking to put out as much pressure as he can.
It's really just to chunk Gear. He has the package right now, and with the health difference, they're trying to make a move on this dragon.
Yeah, Gemini has to back away from this one. He knows that he can't win that 1 versus 3. Nesty around as well, just trying to make sure they can hold some semblance of control, but having to use that package Gear going back to the mid lane, and that is going to signal Jankos to start this dragon.
And again, that's what the Shockwave there didn't intend to kill. If you get the kill, that's great, but it was just to force Corki back. Fortunately for Hong Kong Esports, they stand strong, they come from the same side, and they're not going to let this go without a fight.
Yeah, still maintaining control, and this has been the story of the entire game. We were saying that these teams both very top focused, but so far it has been all about Dragon.
It's been all about the junglers, the 1v1.
So far, I've got to say, Gemini's kind of edging it out right now. Jankos with the 2 deaths. The wet noodle battle continues in the top lane. Odo and Maple Snow just hitting away each other. Maple Snow winning out the trades, but they've got plenty of sustain on both sides.
It's harder for Odo to proc all of his sustain. He eventually gets it because he has to go through the full rotation to make sure that he gets sap magic, whereas Maple Snow in smaller trades can just walk in with the depth charge as well as the Titan's Wrath and absorb a lot of that damage. But again, mid lane being set up, Che's now joined the party, and actually even Odo moving down top river, but I think he's going to be spotted out by Maple Snow.
Yeah, will be pinged away there. I think HKE getting a little bit wise to this now. It's already happened a couple of times this game, but this positioning allows them to rotate now to the Dragon.
And it's because they still have those pressure priorities in the mid and the bottom side of the map. Now, Gemini is top. He's nowhere near to stop this, so this will be the first Earth Dragon for H2k.
Oh, Shockwave onto Gear as well for Bivin. He knows Gemini's not near, but I take that back because Gemini's walking in for Bivin, still looking for the fight. Odoamne's here, but teleport coming through for Maple Snow. For Bivin's in trouble. Gets the spider onto his face. Gemini locked up though. There's the Strangle Thorns. Gets straight up into the air. Curtain Call landing onto Che in the back line. We've got Odoamne just trying to force everybody back. This is such a messy fight, but Maple Snow goes down. Jankos grabs a kill. And Nuclear, he's looking for Godquite. Boomerang Blade doesn't land. Gets rooted himself. Will walk away. It's 1 kill for H2k.
But the damage has been done. They pick up the pocket gold. They've got the creep wave behind them, and they're continuing to push in. Febiven has blue. This Orianna can still push forward.
Look at this. At 16 minutes, they're pressuring a tier 2 tower. They should be able to take this one and walk away with it. They got the dragon and they got a tower, and now they can walk away safely.
Incredibly worth collapse from H2k and very well orchestrated. In the EU LCS, they're criticized sometimes for their consistency, particularly in team fights. Now, it was a little bit spread right there, but the core of the team stands strong. Febiven, Odo, and Jankos.
And you can see that coordination when You leave a fight, and all of your members have taken a significant amount of damage, but nobody's actually gone down. They're juggling that aggro, making sure that nobody's taking the full brunt.
And we're in such a peculiar part of the game because normally mid tower is one of the last to break, especially when there's a Corki sitting there just constantly wave clearing. Now what this means is it's so much easier for Che and Jankos to punish Hong Kong Esports and place deep vision on whatever side of the map they choose.
What a bizarre scenario as well, that mid lane tier 1 and 2 are down while all of the outer towers on the side lanes are still sticking around.
It makes it that much scarier to stand on these structures. You can already see Godquai on your screen. He's very hesitant. Do I stay and step forward? I need Nesty to rotate down to me. And meanwhile, Che is looking for the pick as Hong Kong Esports are trying to cheat through their own jungle.
I love how aggressive Che has been on this Zyra this game, constantly looking to catch people, constantly looking to dish out that damage before these fights start so that they have every little advantage they can find.
But Febiven has done the damage. He's pushed the way forward. Someone will have to respond to that. And so now they can get a numbers advantage if they want to collapse down here or just continue to chip away another free objective. Gear is just trying to hang on, but...
Yeah. One more minion wave and that tower will go down in the bottom lane. That's one of the powers that you get when you lock in that Sivir. The wave push is unreal for Biven. He went very aggressive for that one. Once the red steal doesn't get it in the end, does go the way of
Gear.
Gear, I think, that one, yeah. And that is going to be traded, though. They have to commit so many people for that red buff that they lose yet another tower. It is 3 towers to 0.
Gear thought he could get the jump on Nuclear there, but just trying to reset the wave, forcing it into the tower. Corki picks it up anyway, and everyone's going to reset their backs, go home. And it's now a question of where do H2k strike next? You would assume it would be top side that they would take. Here we go again. Take the easy standing outer objective in that top tower.
Yeah, that final tier 1 that remains on the map. And Dragon will be respawning in the next sort of 3 minutes as well, so that could be an objective that H2k turned their sights towards.
It means they have that 3-minute window before they need to play back towards the bottom side of the map.
And we'll see how they're going to capitalize on that. Hopefully this pause will be reserved. What's the word I'm looking for?
Resumed?
Resolved.
Resolved.
That's what I'm looking for. Hopefully any issues will be resolved. We'll be able to get this game underway once again for you guys. And there it is. Beautiful timing. H2k starting things off right in this decider match. 3,000 is the gold lead with just 4 kills so far, but it's a deceptively low amount of kills because we've had a lot of fights.
We've had a lot of skirmishes. Again, most of the gold is because they've been doing such a great job making these early rotations, pulling their bottom lane, pushing down these very critical towers early, and now Gemini caught.
Yeah, Gemini is going to be caught, has to repel away. Kirkor comes in as well though, but Gemini will be finished off. Che gets the kill. Jankos trying to protect it. Che just dodges the shot. H2k by the seat of their pants walk away with that one.
Meanwhile, Nuclear also forcing Maple Snow off of his tower. Now, Jankos and Che are very low health, but so is the structure. So H2k, again, overwhelm Hong Kong Esports and take another uncontested tower.
This is a macro masterclass right now. 4 towers to 0. Godquire, he's stayed way too long. And Jankos is looking to punish. Nuclear gets the kill. H2k are running away with things.
And frankly, that is unacceptable from Godquire. He is the veteran on this team. He's been playing for something like 3 years. To overextend that quickly when you know the enemy is still in the area. They won't lose another objective for it, but it's definitely going to hurt morale.
Yeah, and when you already are kind of on the back foot morale-wise, the crowd has been chanting H2k. They know that they are not the crowd favorites, and we've got to see them step up here because H2k now 5,000 gold ahead, 4 towers up. They've already got that first dragon. Next dragon going to be spawning in just a minute as well. And just look at the gold differences across the board. We've got 1,500 in favor of Nuclear.
So again, it's that question, where do H2k strike next? Now the dragon is an obvious answer, but a lot of their vision is still fresh and set up over the top side of the map. Baron is in play relatively early for both of these compositions to attempt, unless something goes terribly wrong for someone in a team fight. You would expect H2k to pick up their vision, start moving it back towards the bottom side of the map, and clean up another free objective, whereas Hong Kong Esports have kind of relegated themselves to wave clearing and looking for item breakpoints.
And again, we see Che aggressively walking forward. He wants to find someone. He wants more fights. And I'm pretty sure here, everyone in this Spodek wants more fights as well.
But they're not picking up their vision and moving bottom. They're staying strong on this Baron and moving their control wards into it.
And look at this. You can see the position that H2k are in. They're all at least in the river. They're all pushing into, encroaching on the Hong Kong esports side of the map, constantly being aggressive. And now a second Mountain Drake will be going the way of H2k. Unless Gemini has something to say about it, but he's on the wrong side of the map, and Nesty is on the wrong side of Yanko's feet right there. Will be able to walk away as his teammates protect him. But just that pressure guarantees the second Dragon.
Edge of Night Lee Sin, you can see the sick damage that Jankos is outputting there. You know when a jungler, an AD carry, and Jace mid lane are all building pretty much the same item, that it's slightly overtuned?
Yeah, it's a relatively strong item, but it's also perfect in this scenario because he's against Elise and a Corki and a Nautilus, all dealing out that AP damage.
I think the primary issue with Edge of Night and where it's too strong is its duration of safety. The 8 seconds, maybe that needs to be toned down a little bit so there's a bit more of counterplay.
Yeah.
But
maybe a bit more of a reactive ability rather than a proactive ability. But now, H2k, very much in control of this map. You can see Nuclear starting to hit those power spikes, Essence Reaver and Infinity Edge.
And likewise, in tandem with Febvin also having a very early Void Staff. So normally a composition that really takes 3 items before Sivir and Orianna come online will hit like a truck in the next 5v5. H2k are, they're setting up to kind of this one last sucker punch. If they get a hold of Hong Kong esports, they'll tear them apart.
Yeah, and it's 23 minutes into the game, which usually would be quite early to look towards a Baron, but Vision is already starting to be a focus around that area for both of these teams. I think Hong Kong are not underestimating the fact that H2k are not afraid to pull the trigger if they get an opportunity.
They're also being incredibly cautious. You saw Odo there, for a second standing on spawn looking for the home guards, possibly a teleport flank. So again, H2k have made their plan very clear here. Step into this Baron area. We're either going to take it or we're going to tear your head off.
Taking away the Gromp, taking away just about everything they can from Hong Kong esports here. This LMS team struggling against the European powerhouse.
Just that single ward from Hong Kong esports at the Baron gate there is keeping them very safe in this situation, but maybe not for long.
Yeah, Gear might not be the safest as he dodges away from the knockup, flash into Valkyrie, pulls himself away, but it costs him both his summoners.
And eventually that ward will take off. And again, that's kind of the one saving grace because it does give them vision that the Baron hasn't been started yet. So H2k just continuing to be patient, pushing these way forward, making sure that Hong Kong esports are locked down. They've got tempo advantage. They can't reach out for defensive vision. And eventually someone will slip up, make a mistake, get caught by Che.
Yeah, and I believe in the bottom lane there's a minion wave stacking up in favor of H2k as well. So I can't quite count on the minimap, but would be a nice scenario to kind of force someone from HK down into that bottom lane to deal with that. Gemini taking a good chunk of damage from Che underneath his tower, but nothing too crazy, nothing to write home to your parents about. But H2k, very aggressive positioning across this map. They don't want to let Hong Kong get anything here.
But they do not necessarily, they're trying to stagger their backs, but everyone's backed and kind of vacated the area. So Hong Kong esports actually have a window, actually even forcing Nuclear to burn on the hunt.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, yeah, on the hunt. I'm thinking Rengar, Thrill of the Hunt. Just to disengage from Nautilus, which means that they can move into the Baron pit, clear out the vision, and offer more security and safety around the area.
I would have loved to see Hong Kong esports just go for a crazy Baron rush there on the recalls, just try and force something, but here we go. Speaking of forcing, Odo Omne teleports in, Nesty flashes away, super speed Karma dashing out of the jungle. And it means that no fight ensues. And that Scuttle Crab is going to be a thorn in H2k's side.
But I'm going to say that's a huge win for Hong Kong esports. They got both Odo's teleport as well as the flash, traded simply only for Karma's flash. So big pressure lost, at least from split map presence for Odo.
And certainly H2k, they've slowed down here. They seem to be struggling to find the next objective. They've been doing a very good job of sweeping up these towers early on, getting the dragons, but now that they're looking for Baron, they're struggling to really make that happen.
This is one of the things, you know, Ashe and Jhin have for so long been popular in the meta, they've almost kind of become crutches as for starting team fights with that long-range initiation. And yes, you do have great initiation in the Maokai, but if he doesn't connect, if he has to use his teleport, you know, you're throwing a lot longer cooldowns of that 5 minutes, 4:30 to get him in position, whereas you could just be throwing the Ashe arrows or the Jhin ults every minute. So this is kind of one of the drawbacks of Sivir, of while she's still there kind of on the fringe of AD carry picks, but not necessarily the top meta 3.
I've got to say, Sivir definitely a pick that's often been seen in the past when teams want massive team fights, and Orianna as well. When we see this kind of wombo combo teleport actually being channeled here by Maple Snow, but Gear has been found, gets kicked over the wall, but it's over towards the rest of his teammates. And now H2k are in a bad spot. Jay will be knocked up by the depth charge, and Maple Snow goes hard for that one. It's a kill going the way of Nesty.
And unfortunately, Febiven actually had to hide in the Baron pit, unable to help his team, forcing H2k to just run with their tails between their legs and lose a member.
Really, really nice positioning from Hong Kong Esports there, capitalizing on H2k's mistakes, finding a pick, but what can they get off the back of it?
And that's the good news for H2k fans. They just pick up the support, so again, it's just kind of pressure and tempo over the area, but doesn't give them the objective, doesn't break any of these towers, so kind of trading an objective for some measly pocket gold.
Certainly pocket gold that is absolutely needed for Hong Kong, as they are now 4,500 gold down, slightly less of a gold deficit than what we've seen earlier on in the game, as once again H2k set up vision dominance of this Baron area, but that ward is out of range of the control ward. We've got to see a sweeper or something. For Bivin, he's using his, but he's going the wrong way. Will he get it in time? I think he will.
We got, oh no!
No, the ward stays!
So another sort of minute there on that ward to just keep that vision on the Baron. And in the meantime, while everybody's up there, the ward that we've been talking about, spotting them out, and it means that a dragon goes the way of Hong Kong.
That's fine. It's the Ocean Dragon. Fairly irrelevant at 28 minutes, like, let's be honest. You've got Double Mountain on H2k. They've been about this Baron pit. We've been playing the Baron Tango for the last, finally. Control ward goes down the middle. We got it, boys. Woo!
Got rid of that vision. Gemini's been caught in the meantime. I believe that was Shockwave used just to try and get onto him. Nesty will be rooted up as well. Finished off by Forbidden. He gets the clockwork wind up. Picks off a kill. Again, it's the support going down here, but H2k now with heavy positioning towards this Baron.
But the thing is it's completely dark this time around. It's not just the support pick, and there's a single ward giving Hong Kong Esports some sort of safety. They need to face check into this with a man disadvantage.
Curtain call comes down, Baron's already started, but Forbidden drops. It's a kill going the way of Gear. Oduamne on this front line, but he's running out of HP. There's one coming for God Kwai. Gemini, he repelled, he survives. Jankos is gonna go down. Gear with a triple kill. He's looking for more as he chases down Jay. Changes his mind because Baron is on the card.
And again, he has the option for the quadruple. He pulls off, they look for the Baron. Huge arrow from H2k. They didn't have the shockwave. Febiven gets chunked off before the beginning of the fight, and Hong Kong Esports overwhelm them, take the Baron, and get a foot back in this game.
Can you believe this? H2k have been driving this entire game, and Hong Kong flip it on its head. Now they're the ones in control. They've got the Baron in the back pocket, and the gold lead is basically gone.
Just punished for slight error in setup there. Yes, Draco said it on the analyst desk. If you take macro play to Hong Kong Esports, you will fall apart. H2k ripped them apart in the early game around the map, taking tower after tower, but it came to a 5v5. That's where Hong Kong Esports are comfortable. They knew the shockwave wasn't there, and they took the fight, and now look to take more.
Yeah, already this power play doing them dividends. The gold lead is entirely gone at this stage, neck and neck, but the Baron buff should make short work of that as they head towards this bottom lane tier 2.
The important thing for H2k is to not let their base get cracked here. Give away the free towers. No use throwing yourself into this and giving away an inhibitor. They can still hold strong because they've got plenty of wave clears sitting through their kit in the Sivir and Orianna.
This is such a scary situation for H2k right now. They have so much on the line. They are the favorites to win. They are the fan favorites. Everyone here in the arena wanting them to win. But Hong Kong driving forward with this Baron. They want to get this tower, but not really able to get too much damage down. For Hong Kong, they've got nothing to lose in this situation.
My favorite part about this composition is that Jin opens up, Corki wants to lay down all of the poke, but Odo just steps forward like, what up? I'm a Maokai, I've got 2 major items as well as the frozen heart on the way, and just absorbs all of that poke and all of that pressure, and Hong Kong Esports are forced to just disengage, give it up.
He's just like, what damage? I'm a Maokai, I don't believe in damage. He is 40 CS down in that top lane though, so fair play to Maple Snow. We were criticizing the Nautilus a little bit in the early game, but it's been working out very well. And I've got to say, Maple Snow, in terms of the one-on-one matchups in the top lane, he's actually been doing very well this tournament. On the Gragas as well, he had some pretty good performances.
Again, kind of talking to Jordan, Hong Kong Esports' coach behind the scenes, I was like, you know, are your players nervous? You've got a lot of rookies. Some of these guys have only been playing competitively like 2 months in their career. They're facing some of the greats of Europe, like Odo, like Jankos. Maple Snow, no, he's not afraid of Odo.
Speaking of these Hong Kong Esports players, when you mention Hong Kong Esports, you immediately have to mention Gear. He's taken a top lane tower there. He is 4-1-2 on this Corki. He's 20 CS up. This guy, he's really looking to force this victory for Hong Kong. If they can win this first game in this series, imagine the situation that puts H2k in.
But it's about the different win conditions and how these team fights play out. Can they survive the huge wombo combo burst of H2k? Here they go.
Maple Snow kicked back underneath this tower, taking a lot of damage already in this fight, but the shields are huge. Godquiet using that curtain call. Does actually hit onto Forbidden. Half HP gone already, but the wave clear is real, and the tower will be protected.
And they've still got a lot of wave clear left at the tower, with nuclear still very healthy, so Feathervin can stagger the back, refuel, run back and join his team. The tower should still be standing, so when Orianna arrives, look to see if H2k have the health bar to look for a counter engage. Although it's dropping now.
Yeah, he won't get here in time. The tower will be dropped. That 4v5 advantage, certainly favoring a Hong Kong Esports. They take another tower. They've taken now a significant goal lead. And now they can just head back to base. The next dragon will be spawning in 50 seconds.
Just about resetting their map. Gear picking up a chunkable size of gold on the bottom side. Should get that wave pushing back towards H2k. Wow, Hong Kong Esports H2k. Yeah. That is a rough tongue twister.
Yeah, very similar names of these two teams, certainly in their acronyms. Or initialisms, I should say. But Dragon now, 30 seconds away. Both teams so far this game have had a heavy focus towards that Dragon.
Comes down to vision setup. It's much more important. Technically, it's important for both the compositions, but because you do have the poke potential from Gear and Godquai, you want the vision, so it's like shooting fish in a barrel. See what you're running into, especially so you don't face check into Sivir, Maokai, Zyra.
Will be another Ocean Drake. Again, we've been having this conversation across the tournament. How useful is Ocean Drake? Certainly, when you've got 2 of it, it doubles in usefulness.
Yeah, but at 35 minutes, not necessarily. It's nice on a sieging composition, simply because you then just get to sit back, constantly throw all of your poke under the towers, wait for more creep waves to crash into you. You can be a bit more patient, but again, H2k's composition is about just engaging and blowing you up.
Yeah. And you've got to say, now the Hong Kong Esports are the ones in the driver's seat. They're the ones that are pushing the advantage. Everyone here in the Spodek has gone silent. You can tell which team the fans are behind.
And it's also because we've been in a bit of a hiatus, bit of a lull here. A lot of the teams making some angry eye contact, but no one quite yet willing to throw the game on a single 5v5 that they don't feel 100% confident on. So now we need to talk about setup. The map has been reset, the Baron has fallen off, 1 minute 19 till it respawns. Again, the obvious answer is moving into the area controlling vision, but it's far more important that you manage your side waves. If you can have your waves pushing against your opponent and you walk into a 5v5 arena like the Baron, like the Dragon, even if you lose that, it absorbs a lot of the damage that can be done, because instead of then just taking the fight, taking the objective, and then taking all the towers because the waves are prepped, they need to take the fight, take the objective, and then reset their map, absorbing a lot of time that they could use on the buff.
Jankos has been caught again by Maple Snow. Will safeguard himself out of there. Nuclear blocking the rocket with the spell shield, but Baron is up in 36 seconds. And control is well and truly in the hands of Hong Kong Esports. We've been talking about power spikes this game. Yes, we've got a death cap now coming through for Bivin. He's got 3 full items, but when you look at his opponent, already 4 full items, and not cheap items either. Gear is gearing up to win out this fight if he can get himself in the correct position.
All about execution now. Can he avoid the Maokai? Can Odo find the correct target priority here? Fortunately for Febvin, he does manage to walk away with the blue buff. That's going to be a huge boon for Orianna. As well as the fact that the bottom wave is prepped for H2k, so someone from Hong Kong Esports, you would assume Maple Snow as he's walking down to it needs to deal with it, which means there's now a window where H2k have a numbers advantage. They can either try to force out a teleport or possibly find a 4v5 before Maple Snow can join the team.
Gemini has to repel, but there's no jungle creeps forced to flash, but it's traded for Odoamne's flash, so, you know, it's both of them basically losing their flash engage at that stage.
Almost disaster there. Not super punishing for Elise not to have flash will mean that the engage now is more reliant on Maple Snow because you don't have that flash cocoon, but he's still got the repel to keep himself safe.
And Odoamne losing out on that flash twisted advance. Now that is a very powerful engage tool. Godquai has been rooted though. Jay has been phenomenal this game. Godquai, can they finish it? No, they can't. He walks away, but Jankos isn't done just yet. Sonic Wave hits a Spiderling, but Nesty, trying to protect his team, he's found himself in an awful situation. H2k, they grab themselves a pick, and now they're in control of the picks.
Just disaster from Lipton there. Nesty actually flashed forward for no reason. I think maybe trying to get the speed boost on Godquai to get him out to safety, but Jin just walks it off, and Karma's like, I really wish I had that flash like 5 seconds ago.
Yeah, just walking himself into the river and discovering that there are 5 H2k members just sitting there with him. The Baron will go the way of H2k, but it's a fight on our hands. Kurt call into everyone. Odoamne on approximately 1 million HP on the front line. As Maple Snow engages onto him, but they just can't even dint him at this stage. Jankos just gonna kick away Maple Snow. Odoamne, shockwave onto 2. Gear gets low, but they might be able to still win this one. Odoamne goes down, Stranglethorns to disengage, but they can't escape. Maple Snow looking for this one. Jankos trying to escape with his life, does have Guardian Angel. And I think, no, what a snipe! Godquai gets another one. Hong Kong punishing, but there's Jankos trading it back.
Nuclear is also here, full health and ready to fight Jankos.
That's going to be Maple Snow once again, soaking up a lot of the damage, but he's not that tanky, missing the skill shot. Sonic Wave, not even needed. Guardian Angel will be popped, but Jankos is very low himself, needs to be careful. They back away. All in all, it's a 2-for-1.
Pretty disastrous team fight on both sides, to be honest. A lot of people dying that really shouldn't have. H2k made their goal clear. We've got the Baron. All we need to do is disengage and keep it. That said, I believe they get out with at least 3 members having it, which means they can apply it to every single lane if they want, although it's a bit more difficult with one of them being the jungler.
Yeah, certainly a little bit more of an awkward situation, but still getting that Baron for themselves. The gold lead, I mentioned it earlier, it's basically non-existent at this stage. Yes, it's a 2k gold lead, but realistically at 40 minutes, that's near negligible. You see Jankos trying to get control of this Dragon Pit once more. 45 seconds, and this one, this is the big one. This is the Elder Dragon.
They don't necessarily need to fight for it, however. I think they will because, again, they have the big 5v5 comp. It's still difficult to siege into Jin, Corki. Jin uses ultimate, clear the way. Corki's just obnoxious to siege into anyway with all the pew-pew happening. But I like the trap that's being set up here, but who will they get?
We saw Che doing this earlier, and H2k trying to force a fight. Odoamne gets cocooned, and Jankos has been found. Guardian Angel will be popped. Can he pull himself to safety? Safeguard needs to be used. Will get into the backline, but the Kurt Call doing a lot of damage. Odoamne soaking up everybody right now as Gemini finds his way into the back of H2k. They've got 1 kill. They've turned it into 2. Gemini trying to repel to safety, but he's into the backline, gets the kill onto Forbidden, but trades it for his own life. It's only Godquai remaining as H2k get a 4-for-1.
And they've got multiple creep waves, particularly that one in the mid lane. The Jin has to be careful because Maokai is one of the members that's still alive. It's now 1v1.
Oh, the crit damage! Godquai finding Nuclear all alone, but it's not enough to save the inhibitor.
Again, the damage has been done. They will take the mid inhibitor, so H2k finally get the Baron, find the team fight that they want, and crack the base open.
They get that inhibitor, that oh so crucial objective. It was starting to look a little bit dicey for H2k. They lost control of the map. They lost control of their jungle, but now very much on the front foot once again.
But they went back to basics. Yes, they have the Baron. Yes, they can continue to try to play the sieging game, but why push into the waiting arms of Jin and Corki? Let's set up the pick with our 5v5 comp and just run them down. So recognizing what their win conditions were and acting on it.
Look at this. Elder Dragon started off. There's very little damage available for H2k, but I don't think the reaction is going to be here in time. They do get the Elder Dragon, and there's nothing Hong Kong can do about it. Fantastic, decisive play from H2k.
From bad to worse for Hong Kong Esports, certainly playing on the back foot now. But timer is ticking for Elder. If this 5v5 comp was scary before, it's even now more terrifying. Can they get the fight, however? Will Hong Kong Esports lure themselves into it? Right now, they're just frantically running out to every lane, trying to push it forward and absorb some of this buff timer of H2k trying to reset their lanes before they can allocate all of their members into one decisive play.
Yeah, just looking across the gold chart there on who's ahead, who's behind. So far for H2k, most of the lanes are ahead, but it is all about Gear and Maple Snow for Hong Kong Esports. Those are the two that are keeping the team in their game. Gear 4, 2, and 4 on that Corki. He's the one dishing out the damage, and Godquai, he starts to come online as well.
But you have to ask again, they said it on the desk, what really can Nautilus do in this composition this late game? Yeah, he's got that great targetable ult that he can throw to the back line, but trying to close the gap over a well-placed Zyra ultimate, it's very hard for Maple Snow to be effective unless he gets a flank and just gets to walk freely back there. Because if the line of scrimmage is drawn between these two front lines, H2k have the zoning.
But the question is that going to be the scenario? We can talk hypothetics, but when we get into these team fights, so far this game, they have been very messy and very much, definitely not your textbook team fights.
But the problem is still this. H2k are so reliant on the Baron to siege into Jin Corki. You can see these creep waves are still exploding. They can't get anywhere even with the Elder. And at Hong Kong Esports, you know, they've got their defensive vision out. They're just turtled behind this tower. You don't want to dive this late in the game. Everyone's got their core itemization.
You say that. I've seen crazier things from H2k in the past. And so do Omni. Did go back to base. On his way back towards the rest of the team, so H2k have to back away a little bit here. They can't keep their pressure kicking out while they're only 4v5.
And we're back in the Baron dance, just to be frank. Again, it's incredibly important. Unfortunately, the fact that Hong Kong Esports got the first one stalled out this game longer than H2k would have liked, especially when they had tempo advantage for majority of it. But they're so reliant on the buff to help siege into this comp. And without it, we're not going to go anywhere. So get ready for the Baron Tango.
Yeah, 45 seconds until that one comes onto the map. H2k, they've got control of the area. They're going to be the ones setting up vision. This time, there's no secret deep ward, which is going to be crucial because that was really, really a pain for H2k to have to deal with. The Elder Dragon buff has now timed out, I believe, which means the team fight will be much more even.
And we go back to the good old European death bush. Just sitting and wait to see who will check into it.
It's going to be that old chestnut. We've seen it a million times in Europe. Originally coined by Fnatic all those years ago.
Needs to be either Gemini or Maple Snow, obviously, because they're the tankiest members. Although they do have double mountain, so the thing is Hong Kong Esports, it's a very thin line to walk because you know the monster objective will fall.
Just get any kind of vision, any semblance of an idea here.
That's their only blue trinket, so now pressure on.
Here we go, the fight might just be starting. Maple Snow pulling himself to safety. A lot of damage already going onto the lineup of H2k though. And that's the power of this composition from Hong Kong Esports. Che, just about dodging away from that route.
Another cheeky ward and another teleport burned from Odo to get nothing.
And in the meantime, Hong Kong Esports with some nice positioning, threatening this mid lane tower. H2k, they're not sure what to do about this situation. They can't just start the Baron, but Maybe they can. Maybe that's exactly what they're going to do. Damage still coming in, though.
If this comes to a 50-50 smite, Jankos does have level 18 versus level 17 from Gemini, so technically stronger, but I like H2k's decision. I would very much warn against a 50-50 smite battle.
Yeah, especially this late in the game, because whoever wins the fight probably wins the game off the back of it. Huge minion wave in the top lane in favor of Hong Kong. 3,000 on the Baron. Can they get it? Jankos can't get it. It's Hong Kong Esports that get it. But now the fight will ensue. Maple Snow already incredibly low. Redemption will heal it back up though. As Odo tries to block every single shot from the curtain call. Maple Snow into his Guardian Angel. They'll come back up. Can they finish him off? That's the question. Damage coming out from Nuclear. Spell shields the CC. Maple Snow will go down. Shockwave onto Gonkwai. They get the kill. They're looking to sweep things up. It's a double kill coming through for Forbidden. Jankos still alive in his Guardian Angel. As Gemini gets into the backline, gets finished off, and it's all about Forbidden.
Huge shockwave right there. We've said it before. Febiven has stepped up this tournament. He pulled out the Syndra. He pulled out the Zed. This time it's the Orianna. Hits the massive shockwave. And yes, HKE do get the Baron, but this may mean the inhibitor at least for, this is...
Yeah, this has been a very tense first game, and we said it right at the start. Forbidden putting down the gauntlet, saying to Gear, you think you've got a good Orianna, let me show you how it's done. Gets the triple kill in the last fight. Odoamne going in for this one. Gear is locked up, but he gets the first kill of the fight. He's happy to fight under towers. This is the second time we've seen him destroy H2k when they go for the dive. He's going to lock down Odoamne. He'll walk away with his life, but it's going to thwart this push.
I can understand the mentality from H2k. They want to try to punish Hong Kong Esports where they feel that they have a numbers advantage. A lot of people dead, but now Maple Snow, deep ward, deep teleport.
This is bad news for H2k. Can they collapse? Gear still chasing for this one. Odoamne doesn't have Guardian Angel. The rockets are coming through. Gets an Aegis shield. Gets the Twisted Advance. Jankos is onto the mid laner, but he can't actually do the damage. Curtain Call comes through. Can he land the shot? No, he can't. Dodging away, but the rocket comes through. The auto attack shut down. And now Nesty onto Odoamne. Gets over with the blast cone. There's no follow from Nesty. He doesn't have his flash. Maple Snow trying to chase down Forbidden here. Jay is actually going to sacrifice his own life here to protect his mid laner. But there's no way for the plant to escape the diver. Jay will go down eventually. And H2k are being heavily punished at this stage. Odoamne gets rooted. Gonkwai has been the god sniper for Hong Kong.
They may have just lost the game. Those death timers are very long for H2k. They have the Baron buff still relevant on Gear, a wave coming into them. Jin and Corki are alive. Can Febiven and Nuclear hold?
We have to see a miracle for Europe right now if H2k want to win this. Triple shockwave for Forbidden, keeping themselves in the game. What a play!
Oh.
This is as close as we could possibly have hoped for. Hong Kong Esports, the underdogs, keeping themselves in, but Forbidden single-handedly keeping H2k in the game right now.
Multiple massive shockwaves. That almost spelled the in for H2k. Hong Kong Esports, a little bit gun-shy though after that one. Immediately turned tail.
I feel like maybe intimidated at that stage. After a shockwave like that comes out, huge minion wave will pick up the top lane tower for H2k. It's only the inhibitors remaining for Hong Kong. That's all they've got left to fall back on, but it's the same story on the H2k side of the map.
And it's a very long way to run. We've got an incredibly open map, a lot of speed and movement between the Sivir and the Karma, respectively, to both compositions. We've seen kind of swing and miss flanks every single time. Odo is certainly needs to kind of be criticized a little bit for how the teleport has been wasted or not as efficiently used or followed up. Not necessarily always his fault, because his team also has to set up with that, but Maple Snow has just been so much more effective with these deep teleport plays.
And we have a rare treat here for you guys. It's very rare that we see a game that goes this late, 2 Elder Dragons, as the second one will be spawning in 1 minute and 10 seconds, and yet the fight is still so close. H2k won the engage, but the cocoon from Gemini is on point.
That is the most expensive Jin trap I think I've ever seen. That literally just saved their lives on like 4 members.
But now, H2k, they can just back things up once again, make sure that they've got items, because they know that this team fight for Elder Dragon is going to be the most important fight of this entire game.
But this isn't where you want to be. You know, H2k, they're the heavy favorites coming into this. Hong Kong Esports, they had 2 days to prepare for this event. They're one of the bottom teams in the LMS. This is one of the top teams in Europe. And frankly, a game that comes to a 50-50 team fight is fairly unacceptable. Now, H2k, they have the opportunity to still win that 50-50, but the days of winning through macro have kind of passed at this point.
There's not enough objectives on the map to even play macro at this stage.
But there are definitely still pressure points and minion waves that they can manipulate and maneuver. Thank you, spectator.
Yeah, huge minion wave building up in that top lane. It's an important factor because the inhibitor tower in the top lane for H2k is very low. Look at this, Hong Kong taking a leaf out of H2k's books. Maple Snow walking forward here. He wants to engage, he wants to find the fight. Odoamne can soak up damage for days though.
Nice thing is the damage has been done. However, the super creep wave was pushed into the mid lane, which now, because Gear is busy dealing with this, allows H2k to move in over the Elder Dragon.
No package available either, so it's a very long walk for him to get back to this area.
Should be noted that if they lose control over vision, both teams only have 1 blue orb. Gets fairly important when everyone's slots are eaten up, that the only people who can carry wards literally are the supports.
This is such an intense game. This is a lot closer than I think most people were expecting. The Elder Dragon has been started. Hong Kong Esports, they're burning it down very quickly. Jankos goes in, can he finish the objective? That's the question. It's going to be a smite battle. It goes the way of Gemini, but can the fight? Maple Snow will be getting a huge shield, walks away with his life. Odoamne, the current call chipping away at him. Does not finish off the kill though. There's a root on top of everything else. Both teams fully survive.
But Baron in 19 seconds and H2k need to take care of these creep waves. There's going to be no vision set on the Baron.
Banner of Command will mean that this mini wave has the damage.
Hong Kong Esports can just rush the Baron and take it. Jankos has to stay in the area if he wants to try to defend it, but he went back to base.
That is going to be, that tower is lost. Hong Kong Esports, they start off the Baron. They've got to do this oh so quickly. Odoamne has his teleport available. Jankos will be charging over as fast as he can, but I don't think H2k are even going to contest. They realize that this isn't a fight that they can win. They can't even get there in time. Both major objectives go the way of Hong Kong Esports. They are sitting in prime position.
But we saw what happened last time they approached H2k's base, and Febiven rocked their backline with a shockwave. This time around, they do have the Elder to supplement that, as well as a fresh Baron on every single member. So it's a question, do they play this conservatively? Do they try to smother H2k, split them around the map and apply Baron in multiple waves? Or do they just run it up and try to take that 5v5?
I want to see Gear lose his mind in this fight, right? We've been mentioning how he's got to prove himself. He is the mid laner that needs to step up in the LPL. He wants to be one of those top 4 mid laners. And this is his opportunity up against Febiven, who's been playing on point. Jankos looking for the flank.
This is the do or die Lee Sin play. If he can find Corki or God Kwai, he's going in.
Curtain Call goes in. That's going to interrupt the Curtain Call as well. Jankos kicks back Maple Snow. He's still surviving in this fight though. Aegis Shield will keep everybody alive. There's a lot of health bars, a lot of shields. No one really being able to go down just yet, but they're onto the backline. Febiven's been locked up. Can they finish off the kills? That's the question. Shockwave has already been used and it wasn't effective enough. That is going to be Odoamne dropping the first casualty here.
Disaster. The shockwave connects with literally no one. Jankos set them up for success, you know, canceled the Jhin ultimate, but the cooldowns didn't connect. They're teleporting back in.
Trying to force the issue on this one, looking for the top lane inhibitor as well. Trying to force this fight, but it's going to be Che on the front line. He will be finished off in the end. It's Gemini that gets the kill. Jankos forced away. Hong Kong Esports, they're trying to knock in the final nails. 2 members down now for H2k, 2 inhibitors down as Hong Kong rotate to the bottom side of the map.
Just going to clear out the entire base, continue to try to take these 5s, but alongside their creeps. H2k backs to the wall. They are running out of time.
They certainly are. Shockwave only onto Maple Snow there. Very low health bars for HKE. Can anything be done at this late stage in the game? Jankos still surviving. Gear dishing out the damage though. Godquai going forward is traded 1-for-1. Nuclear still alive, but the Viven went down. Can Nuclear pull this one out of the bag? He's going to have to if he wants to stay in this game. Jankos into Guardian Angel. Hong Kong looking to end the game. Maple Snow just trying to survive where H2k are fighting back. Gear goes down. Nuclear is going like an atomic bomb. He's going Nuclear. But it's not enough. The Nexus drops. Hong Kong Esports against all odds, denying the save from Nuclear. It's just too late. 1-0.
They chose to smother the base. They went for breaking all 3 inhibs, had multiple super waves crashing on, and despite the all-star performance from Nuclear in that last attempt, the creeps in the game and Hong Kong Esports, behind pretty much 99% of that game, find it in the end.
Against all odds. Everybody voting against them, the analysts against them, the fans at home against them, everyone here in the Spodek against them. They take the first game.
So much more effective with their teleport use. Anytime Maple Snow pulled the trigger on that, they made sure they got something. Hong Kong, or H2k's composition was unable to siege into Hong Kong Esports. They were just able to clear out the creep wave so easily. They depended on the Baron. When they didn't get the first one, it stalled out the game long enough for Corki and Jin to just take over this game.
Well, we're going to be going into a quick break. I don't know about you guys, I certainly going to need a break after that grueling first match. We'll see if Hong Kong Esports can finish things off in this series or whether H2k can get back on that horse in just a few minutes' time.